everyone, it's Evange. So this is a project I actually completed way back in July, and I noticed today that I never uploaded it. So I'm calling this a roughly Alice apron, and it's loosely based off the apron from Alice in Wonderland, the Disney one. But yeah, it was kind of the idea was not to be a functional apron, but rather like a picture-perfect cartoonish apron. So I've got ruffles here, it crisscrosses in the back, and then I've got a big bow. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Start by cutting out a rectangle of fabric. It's going to be as long as you want your apron to be, plus about an inch, 2 inches for a hem allowance, and a 1/4 inch for a seam allowance. And then I've done mine as wide as the full width of fabric, which is 45 inches. It depends on how full you want your apron to be, how much gathering you want. You could do it wider, either with multiple panels of fabric or with 60-inch fabric instead of 45-inch fabric. Or you could make it much narrower by just cutting out the exact size you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/4 inch hem along each side, and then a 1 inch hem along the bottom. So as you can see, I've hemmed it. I've done a 1/4 inch on each of the sides, and then about an inch on the bottom, and then this top edge is still raw. I haven't done anything with it. So I'm going to sew a basting stitch along this line, and then I'm going to pull on the ends of the thread to bring it in. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's white on white, but I've done 3 rows of basting stitches. I always like to do either 2 or 3 rows, because if you just do 1 row, then when you pull it and it starts to pucker, the fabric could accidentally curl over, and then when you sew it, you're going to have maybe a raw edge sticking out somewhere that you didn't intend to have. So doing 2 or 3 rows just keeps it a bit neater when you pull it. So you just need to locate the threads on the end. Either take the top threads or the bottom threads, but not both. If you pull both, it'll just tighten, and then you won't be able to pull. So I've just taken one side. And once you've got these threads, you're going to start pulling. And see, it's making gathers. As you can see, I now have a very lovely gathered apron panel. And I'm going to set that aside for a minute while I work on the waistband. I've cut out a strip of fabric to be my waistband. It's the length of my waist plus about 4 to 6 inches on each side, because I don't want it to be really tight, the size of my waist. I want there to be quite a bit of ease, and then I also want there to be a bit of overlap in the back. I'm just going to take my waistband and I'm going to fold it in half and just kind of make a crease where the center is. And you probably can't see it, but there is a little crease here. And then I'm going to take this apron and put it right sides together to the waistband. Now that's the center of the waistband. I'm going to find the center of this, and I'm going to pin it. It's up to you how wide or narrow you want the apron panel to be. It has to do with, you know, how wide or narrow you cut it, but then also how much it's gathered. I'm just going to sew along here. Next, you want to cut out kind of a trapezoid type shape. This is going to become the top part of the apron. It's going to kind of cover your chest a bit. You want it in a trapezoid type shape, so smaller at the bottom and wider at the top. Now the width at the bottom needs to be less than the width of the apron panel. And the width of the top, it can be either still smaller or about the same size. You probably don't want it bigger though. And then the height, you just kind of hold the fabric up and kind of measure on yourself how long you want it. Probably be somewhere between 6 and 10 inches. I think mine is about 7 or 8. So once you've got it cut out, add a hem on each side, so 1/4 inch on each side, and then at the top you can add a 1 inch hem. And once that's done, you basically just pin it right sides together to the rest of the apron. and then sew along this seam to join it. Once you've sewn the top panel to the waistband, you can just set it aside for a couple minutes while you work on the straps. Now, I want my straps to crisscross in the back, so to measure for that, I'm going to take a measuring tape and place it approximately where the apron would end on your chest, which will be about the apex of your bust. And then just take the measuring tape and wrap it around your back to the opposite side of your waist. And on me, that's about 30 inches. So I know I'm gonna need to cut my strip at least 30 inches, but you probably wanna add 3, 4, 5 extra inches to that, just for ease, for seam allowances, and also so that you can adjust it. So I'm gonna cut my strip about 34 inches, and I've already cut one out. So it's 34 inches long, and then the width, it's going to be 2 times the finished width that you want plus seam allowances. So I want my finished width to be about 1 inch, so I've cut it almost 3 inches because it's going to be folded in half, and then there are going to be seam allowances. And then you want to cut out a strip of fabric to become your ruffle. The ruffle is going to start where the strap meets the front panel of the apron, and it has to go at least over the shoulder. And it's going to be gathered, and you have to gather it at least 2 times for it to look good. So I've just cut out basically a really, really long strip of fabric, and it's twice the width I want my ruffle to be, and it's folded in half. And the reason it's folded in half is so this will be the edge that's sticking out, this will be the inside in the seam, and then you don't have to hem anything. So what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to turn this inside out and then just sew up the edges so that when you turn it right side out, there's no raw edge. So I've just sewn the end closed, and then I'm going to turn it right side out so that what I have has a nice clean finish, no raw edges. And then I'm going to gather it by running a basting stitch along the unfinished edge and then pulling it. And then once you've gathered it, you're just going to sew it on to your strap. So here's strap number 1. You just need to repeat the process now to make strap number 2. And then you just need to place the strap under the corner of the front panel and sew that on. Once both straps have been sewn on, you're on the home stretch. You just need to kind of put it on as best you can. I know it's not going to quite tie in the back yet, but you know, pin it if it doesn't hold in place, like such. And then with these straps, you've got to just kind of bring them over and then kind of pin them to where on the waistband you want them to fall. Then take the apron off, and you want to sew the straps to the waistband where you've pinned. Then what you need to do is cut out another strip of fabric that's the exact size and shape as your waistband piece, pin it together, right sides together, and sew along the edge, leaving just a small space to turn it right side out. So I've sewn the inner waistband to the outer waistband, and before I turn it right side round, I'm just gonna, you know, trim off any extra fabric, any corners. Now, it's completely optional, but I'm gonna top stitch the waistband now. So I've top stitched all the way around the waist, and then I've also just sewn on some snaps. Now, the reason why I didn't just make the waistband really long so it could tie in the back and instead use snaps is because I made this oversized anime style bow, and I think it'll give it a much better look than just tying something in the back. So I'm just going to stitch this on to the back of the waistband, and then I'm done. So this is the actual finished apron. As you can see in the back, I've put a big bow. It doesn't actually tie, it's one of the anime bows that I made, and there's another video about that. So thanks for watching. Remember to look at my website, www.evangesews.com, but also evangeStyle.com, and at one point they will become the same website. Thanks for watching.